The scent of disinfectant and desperation clung to my clothes like a second skin. I'd spent another 14-hour shift at Metropolitan General, my feet screaming in protest against the worn sneakers that should have been replaced months ago. But rent didn't pay itself, and neither did the mounting hospital bills that arrived with clockwork cruelty every week. I pushed through the revolving doors into the November night, pulling my thin jacket tighter against the wind that cut through the fabric like it wasn't even there. The city lights blurred together, a watercolor painting of gold and red that would have been beautiful if I wasn't so bone-tired I could barely see straight. My phone buzzed. Another text from the billing department. Another reminder that my father's treatment costs were drowning us both. I didn't read it. The subway station exhaled warm, stale air as I descended the stairs, my hand trailing along the grimy railing. Tuesday nights were quieter. Fewer bodies pressed together, fewer chances of someone's elbow in my ribs or briefcase against my shin. Small mercies. But tonight, I wouldn't make it to the subway. Miss Reeves? A voice, smooth as aged whiskey, cut through the ambient noise of the street above. I turned, my heart already picking up speed, though I couldn't say why. A man stood at the top of the stairs, tall, impossibly well-dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my annual salary. Dark hair swept back from a face that belonged on magazine covers, all sharp angles and dangerous beauty, but it was his eyes that stopped me cold. Gray, like storm clouds, and just as turbulent. Behind him, two men in black stood with the kind of stillness that suggested violence was merely a breath away. Yes? My voice came out smaller than I intended. He descended the stairs with the grace of a predator, each step deliberate, measured. The fluorescent lights caught the gleam of an expensive watch, the shine of Italian leather shoes. He smelled like sandalwood and something darker, something that made my pulse thunder in my ears. Your father, Thomas Reeves, borrowed a substantial sum from my organization 6 months ago. His voice remained pleasant, conversational even, but I heard the steel underneath. The payments have stopped. The world tilted. My father had told me he'd gotten a loan from a private lender, that it was all legitimate, that we'd pay it back once he recovered. He'd never mentioned. I don't understand, I whispered, though I was beginning to, horribly. $200,000. He stopped 3 steps above me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. For experimental cancer treatment in Switzerland. Your father signed a contract. He's defaulted. My knees felt weak. He's dying. He can't. The treatment didn't work. We're drowning in medical debt as it is. Something flickered across his face. Too quick to name. I'm aware of his condition. I'm also aware that debts don't disappear simply because they're inconvenient. I'll pay you back. The words tumbled out desperately. I'll work extra shifts. At your current salary, working every hour available, it would take you approximately 15 years to repay the principal, not including interest. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he was mildly interested in solving. I didn't come here to negotiate a payment plan, Miss Reeves. Fear, cold and sharp, sliced through my exhaustion. Then why? I came to offer you an alternative. He descended the final steps, now level with me, and I caught the full force of his presence. Power, danger, and something else that made my skin prickle with awareness. Your father's debt erased completely. His remaining medical bills paid in full. A comfortable living arrangement for him for whatever time he has left. My breath caught. In exchange for what? His lips curved, not quite a smile. Marriage. The word hung between us like a physical thing. I must have heard him wrong. What? 6 months. A legal marriage. You'll live in my home, attend functions as my wife, play the role convincingly. His eyes never left mine, reading every micro-expression. At the end of 6 months, we divorce quietly. You walk away with enough money to start fresh anywhere you choose. Your father's debts cleared, his care guaranteed until he dies. I finished, my voice hollow. Yes. I should have run. Every instinct screamed at me to flee up those stairs and never look back. But my father's face swam before my eyes. Gaunt, gray, aging a decade in 6 months. The way he apologized every time I visited, tears in his eyes for the burden he'd become. Why? The question scraped out of my throat. Why me? Why marriage? I have my reasons. His hand moved, and I flinched before I could stop myself. He paused, then continued the motion more slowly, pulling a card from his inner pocket. You have 24 hours to decide. The number on this card will reach me directly. The card was heavy, expensive stock. No name, just a phone number embossed in silver. And if I refuse, the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Then your father's contract will be enforced through traditional channels. I believe he put up his house as collateral. Where will he go, Miss Reeves, when he's too weak for treatment but not yet gone? The streets are particularly cold this time of year for dying men. Nausea rolled through me. You're a monster. Yes. No shame, no deflection, just acknowledgement. But I'm a monster offering you a solution. 24 hours. He turned and ascended the stairs, his guards falling into step behind him. At the top, he paused and looked back. The light from the street lamps cast his face half in shadow, emphasizing the stark beauty and the underlying menace. For what it's worth, Miss Reeves, I don't make this offer lightly. Think carefully. Then he was gone, swallowed by the New York night, leaving me standing in the dingy subway entrance with a business card burning a hole in my palm and a choice that was really no choice at all. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my studio apartment, if you could call a converted closet an apartment, and stared at the card until the numbers blurred. My phone lay beside it, silent and accusing. Marriage. To a man whose name I didn't even know. A man who radiated danger like heat from asphalt in summer. A man who could casually discuss my father's death and our debt in the same breath. But also a man who could save us both. At 3 a.m., I pulled out my laptop and tried to research him. The phone number yielded nothing. No reverse lookup. No connection to any business. It was as if he existed in a space the internet couldn't touch, which told me everything I needed to know about what he was. Mafia. Organized crime. The kind of people my father had somehow gotten tangled with in his desperation to live. I thought about calling the police. The thought died as quickly as it formed. What would I tell them? A man offered to pay my father's debts in exchange for a temporary marriage? That wasn't illegal. Immoral, maybe. Certainly suspicious, but not criminal on its face. And if I involved the authorities, my father would lose everything anyway. Dawn broke gray and cold, matching my mood. I showered, dressed in my only nice outfit, a navy dress I'd bought for job interviews 3 years ago, and called in sick to work. My supervisor didn't sound pleased, but I barely heard her as I ended the call. The card sat on my tiny kitchen counter, mocking me with its simplicity. I picked up my phone, put it down, picked it up again. My father's voice echoed in my memory from my last visit. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry for all of this. You should be living your life, not watching me die. My thumb hovered over the numbers. 6 months. I could survive anything for 6 months. And then my father could die in peace, in comfort, without the weight of his failures crushing his final days. I dialed before I could change my mind. He answered on the first ring. Miss Reeves. Not a question. He'd been expecting my call. I have conditions. My voice shook, but I forced steel into it. I'm listening. I want everything in writing. The debt forgiveness, the medical care, the money at the end, legal contracts. Of course. I want to see my father whenever I choose. Reasonable. And I want to know your name. A pause. Longer this time. Then Dante. Dante Moretti. The name sent ice through my veins. I'd heard it whispered in the hospital, seen it in news articles about unsolved crimes and federal investigations that went nowhere. The Moretti family controlled half the city's underground, and Dante Moretti was their youngest don in history. I'd just agreed to marry one of the most dangerous men in New York. There's a car waiting outside your building, he continued, as if he hadn't just confirmed my worst fears. It will bring you to my attorney's office. We'll sign the papers this morning. This morning? I moved to the window, pulled back the curtain. Sure enough, a black Mercedes idled at the curb, so out of place on my shabby street it might as well have been a spaceship. I don't believe in unnecessary delays. His tone shifted, became something almost gentle. And your father's medications run out today, I believe. Time is rather essential. He'd researched me, knew my schedule, my father's treatment plan, probably my bank balance and credit score too. The violation of it should have angered me. Instead, I just felt tired. "I'll be down in 10 minutes, Emma." The use of my first name jolted through me. "You're making the right choice." The line went dead before I could respond, leaving me to wonder if he actually believed that or if he was simply very good at lying. The leather seats of the Mercedes were softer than my bed. I sat rigid against them, hands clasped in my lap, watching the city blur past tinted windows that turned the morning gray into something darker, more ominous. The driver hadn't spoken beyond a polite greeting, his eyes hidden behind sunglasses despite the overcast sky. I wondered if he was armed. I wondered if I cared. The attorney's office occupied the top 3 floors of a building in Midtown that screamed old money and older secrets. The elevator was all brass and mirrors, and I avoided looking at my reflection. The girl staring back looked like a stranger playing dress-up in a world where she didn't belong. Dante was waiting in a conference room that could have held my entire apartment twice over. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city I'd never seen from this height. Sprawling, glittering, indifferent to the lives being bartered within these walls. He stood when I entered, and I noticed the details I'd missed in the subway's harsh light, a thin scar along his jawline, barely visible. The way he moved with absolute economy, no wasted motion. The expensive watch that probably cost more than my father's entire debt. And those eyes. God. Those eyes that seemed to catalog every nervous breath I took. "Emma." He gestured to a chair across from him. "Thank you for coming." As if I'd had a choice. An older man sat at the head of the table, silver-haired and sharp-eyed behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Miss Reeves, I'm James Aldrich. I'll be handling the legal documentation for this arrangement." Arrangement. I tasted the word, found it bitter. "Is that what we're calling it?" Dante's mouth quirked. "What would you prefer? Transaction, agreement, marriage of convenience?" "Any of those would be more honest than pretending this is normal." "I never claimed it was normal." He sat, the motion fluid and controlled. "But it will be legal, binding, and beneficial to both parties. Shall we begin?" The next hour passed in a blur of legal terminology I barely understood. Aldrich explained each document with the detached precision of a man who'd done this before, and that thought alone made my skin crawl. How many women had sat in this chair before me? How many desperate souls had Dante Moretti collected? But the contracts were thorough, ironclad even. My father's debt, $200,000 plus accumulated interest, totaling $247,000, would be forgiven upon my signature. His medical care, including hospice when the time came, fully funded. A stipend of $5,000 monthly for my personal expenses during the marriage. And at the end of 6 months, assuming I fulfilled my obligations, a lump sum of $500,000. My obligations. I looked up from the papers. What exactly does that entail? Dante leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "You'll live in my home, attend social functions as my wife, maintain the appearance of a legitimate marriage in public. And in private?" Something flickered in those gray eyes. "You'll have your own suite. I won't touch you unless absolutely necessary for appearances, a hand on your back, dancing at events, that sort of thing. Your physical autonomy is guaranteed." Relief and something else, something I didn't want to examine, washed through me. Why? Why go through all this? You could have any woman you wanted, but I don't want any woman. He leaned forward, elbows on the mahogany table. "I want a wife who understands this is business. No emotional complications, no romantic delusions. Someone who will play the role and walk away clean. Someone desperate enough not to ask too many questions," I added quietly. "That too." At least he didn't insult me by denying it. Aldrich cleared his throat. "There are additional clauses regarding discretion. You may not discuss the nature of this arrangement with anyone, including your father. As far as the world is concerned, this is a genuine marriage. You want me to lie to my dying father. I want you to give him peace." Dante's voice remained level, but I heard something underneath, not quite sympathy, but close. "Would you rather tell him his daughter sold herself to clear his debts? Or let him believe you found someone who cares for you?" The cruelty of the choice stole my breath. But he was right, damn him. My father's guilt was already eating him alive. This would destroy what remained. Fine. I grabbed the pen Aldrich offered. Where do I sign? Emma? Dante's hand covered mine, stopping the pen's descent. His skin was warm, calloused in unexpected places. The hands of someone who did more than sign papers and issue orders. Once you sign, there's no backing out. 6 months, no matter what happens. Are you certain? I met his eyes. Those storm cloud eyes that held secrets I probably didn't want to know. Are you trying to give me an out? That doesn't seem very mob boss of you. I'm trying to ensure you understand what you're agreeing to. He released my hand, leaving a warm imprint that lingered. My world isn't safe, Emma. It's not kind. And once you're my wife, even temporarily, you'll be part of it. People will watch you, judge you. Some will try to use you against me. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to be honest. He stood, walked to the windows, hands in his pockets. Against the backdrop of the city, he looked like a king surveying his domain. I have enemies, dangerous ones. As my wife, you'll have protection. Constant, invasive protection. But you'll also have a target on your back. My hand trembled. I set down the pen. Maybe you should have led with that. Would it have changed your decision? I thought of my father, of the bills, of the house he'd already lost in everything but paperwork. No. Then there's your answer. He turned back to face me. Sign the papers, Emma. Save your father. Survive 6 months in my world. Then walk away and never look back. I signed. My hand moved across page after page, my signature appearing again and again until it stopped looking like my name and started looking like a surrender. Aldrich witnessed each one, his expression never changing, as if women didn't sell themselves in his office every day. When it was done, Dante signed his own name beside mine. His signature was bold, aggressive, the kind of handwriting that demanded attention. The ceremony will be tomorrow, Aldrich said, gathering the papers. City Hall, 2 p.m. Small, private, legally binding. Tomorrow? I stared at Dante. That's efficient. He buttoned his suit jacket. Your father's medications will be delivered this afternoon. I've arranged for a private nurse to begin this evening, and your belongings will be moved to my home tonight. I haven't even packed. It's being handled. The casual way he commandeered my life should have sparked anger. Instead, I just felt numb. Do you always move this fast? When something is important, yes. He gestured toward the door. The car will take you to visit your father. Spend the day with him. Tomorrow, you become my wife. The word still sounded surreal. Wife. Dante Moretti's wife. I stood on legs that felt distant from my body. What do I tell him? The truth, as you'll tell everyone else. We met. There was a connection. We're moving quickly. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. It's not entirely a lie. We did meet. There is a connection, even if it's contractual, and we are certainly moving quickly. He'll never believe I'd marry someone I just met. Then sell it better. Dante moved closer, and I caught that sandalwood scent again, mixed with something crisp. Expensive cologne that probably had a name I couldn't pronounce. You're going to have to be a good actress for the next 6 months, Emma. Consider this your first performance. He was right. My father had to believe this was real, that I was happy, that his brilliant, beautiful daughter had found someone who'd take care of her. One final gift before he left me alone in this world. I don't know if I can do this, I whispered. Dante's hand came up, and for a moment I thought he might touch my face. Instead, he adjusted the collar of my dress, the gesture oddly intimate despite its impersonality. You're stronger than you think. Your father raised a survivor. How would you know? Because you're still standing here instead of running. Because you signed those papers knowing exactly what they meant. Because you're willing to walk into my world to save someone you love. His hand dropped. That's not weakness, Emma. That's strength dressed in desperation. The car ride to my father's nursing home felt different somehow. Maybe it was knowing that tonight I'd sleep in a stranger's house. Maybe it was the weight of the rings already burning in my pocket. Dante had given them to me in the elevator. 2 platinum bands that looked deceptively simple, but probably cost more than most people's cars. Temporary, he'd said, but convincing. The nursing home smelled like industrial cleaner and gradual dying. My father's room was at the end of the hall, past the occupied wheelchairs and the nurses who knew me by name and pitying expression. He was awake, staring out the window at a view of the parking lot. When I entered, his face lit up with the smile that reminded me of childhood, of better times before cancer ate him from the inside out. "Sweetheart." His voice was thready, weak. "You didn't have to come. You should be at work." I took the day off. I sat in the chair beside his bed, taking his hand. It felt like paper and bone. "Dad, I have something to tell you." Concern flickered across his gaunt features. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Actually, something's right." The lies felt thick on my tongue. "I met someone." His eyes widened. "What?" "His name is Dante. We've been seeing each other for a little while, and..." I pulled out the rings, let them catch the fluorescent light. "We're getting married. Tomorrow." Silence stretched between us. My father stared at the rings, then at me, then back at the rings. "Emma, that's wonderful, but tomorrow? Isn't that..." "Fast, I know." I manufactured a smile that felt like cracking glass. "But when you know, you know. Right? And Dad, he's good to me. He's stable, financially secure. He wants to take care of me. What about your job? Your apartment?" "I'm moving in with him, and I'll find something new, something better." More lies. Smooth as silk and just as false. "He's already arranged for your care to be upgraded. You're going to have a private nurse, better medication, whatever you need." My father's eyes filled with tears. "Emma, no. I can't let you burden someone else with my mistakes. It's not a burden. He wants to help." I squeezed his hand, willing him to believe me. "Please, Dad, let me do this. Let me be happy." The word happy tasted like ash, but I smiled through it. He searched my face for a long moment, looking for cracks in the facade. I held steady, channeling every acting lesson I'd never taken, every lie I'd never told. Finally, he smiled. Tremulous, hopeful, heartbreaking. "If he makes you happy, sweetheart, then I'm happy. I just wish your mother could have been here to see this." Guilt crashed over me in waves. My mother, dead 3 years from the same disease now killing my father, would have seen through this charade in seconds. She would have known, would have fought, would have found another way. But my mother was gone, and I was drowning, and Dante Moretti had thrown me a rope made of lies and contracts. So I lied to my dying father and told him I was in love. The Moretti estate wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined something gaudy, dripping with nouveau riche excess, gold fixtures and marble columns screaming about money and power. Instead, the car pulled through iron gates into grounds that looked like they'd been transplanted from the English countryside. Ancient trees lined the drive, their bare November branches creating a tunnel that filtered the afternoon light into something softer, almost ethereal. The house itself was stone and glass, modern architecture married to old-world craftsmanship. It shouldn't have worked, but somehow it did. Elegant, understated, and utterly intimidating. "Home, sweet home," I muttered, and the driver's eyes crinkled in what might have been amusement in the rearview mirror. Dante stood at the top of the stone steps leading to the entrance, flanked by those ever-present guards. He'd changed from the suit into dark slacks and a charcoal sweater that made his eyes look even more stormy. His hands were in his pockets, posture relaxed, but I was learning to read the tension underneath. The way he tracked my exit from the car, the slight tilt of his head as he assessed something I couldn't see. "What do you think?" he asked as I climbed the steps, my worn sneakers looking absurd against the pristine stone. "I think I'm severely underdressed for my own prison." His mouth twitched. "It's not a prison, Emma. There are no locks on your doors, no bars on your windows. Just armed guards at the gate. For protection, not imprisonment. There's a difference, is there?" I stopped at the top, level with him. Up close, I could see the faint shadow of stubble along his jaw, the tiny lines at the corners of his eyes that suggested he was older than he looked. Late 20s? Maybe early 30s. Young for a Mafia don, young for someone with so much blood on his hands. "Yes." He moved aside, gesturing toward the entrance. Come, I'll show you your quarters. The interior matched the exterior, understated luxury that whispered rather than shouted. Hardwood floors gleamed under strategically placed lighting. Art that looked museum quality hung on walls painted in soothing neutrals. A massive staircase curved upward, its banister a work of wrought iron artistry. 18 bedrooms, 12 bathrooms, a library, gym, pool, and various other spaces you'll discover as you explore, Dante said, leading me up the stairs. His hand hovered near my lower back but didn't touch, and I couldn't decide if I was relieved or disappointed. The staff knows you're coming. They've been instructed to give you privacy, but provide anything you need. Staff. Of course there was staff. How many people work here? In the house? 8 full-time. Security operates on shifts, so that number varies. He glanced back at me. They're discreet. You'll barely notice them. We reached the second floor, and he guided me down a hallway lined with closed doors. At the end, he pushed open double doors to reveal a suite that made my entire apartment look like a shoebox. The main room was done in creams and soft grays, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the grounds. A sitting area held furniture that looked like it belonged in a boutique hotel. Through an archway, I glimpsed a bedroom, with a bed large enough to sleep 4 people comfortably. Your bathroom is through there, Dante pointed. Walk-in closet beside it. Your belongings have been unpacked, though I took the liberty of having additional items delivered. You'll need appropriate clothing for the functions we'll attend. I walked to the windows, pressing my palm against the cold glass. The grounds stretched out like a private park, manicured lawns giving way to what looked like natural forest at the edges. You said I'm not a prisoner, but I'm betting I can't just walk out those gates whenever I please. You can go anywhere you want. He moved beside me, close enough that I caught his scent again. With security detail. As I said, Emma, you have a target on your back now. My enemies would love nothing more than to get their hands on you. The casual way he said it made my stomach clench. What would they do? If they got me? Use you for leverage, torture you for information. His reflection in the window showed no emotion. Kill you to send a message. Take your pick. Jesus Christ. I wrapped my arms around myself. And you think this is a reasonable arrangement? I think it's the arrangement we made. And I think you'll be safer here with my protection than you'd ever be out there trying to pay off that debt on your own. He turned to face me fully. My father made mistakes that put us at war with the Calabrese family. They've been testing our borders, pushing boundaries, looking for weakness. A sudden marriage would have been suspicious under normal circumstances. But a marriage that can be traced to a legitimate debt, that provides cover. Understanding dawned cold and clear. I'm not just paying off my father's debt. I'm camouflage for whatever you're really planning. Partially. He didn't deny it. You're also insurance. The Calabrese respect family, even manufactured family. They'll think twice before moving against someone's wife, even in this world. How comforting. I turned away from the window, from him, from the reality of what I'd walked into. I need some time alone. Of course. He moved toward the door, then paused. Emma, your father will receive the best care available. That part wasn't a lie. Just everything else. Not everything. His hand rested on the doorframe. I meant what I said earlier. You're stronger than you think, and for what it's worth, I'm sorry this is the situation you're in. But not sorry enough to let me out of it. No. At least he was honest. Not sorry enough for that. The door closed behind him with a soft click that sounded like finality. I stood in the center of the room, my gilded cage, and tried to remember how to breathe. Through the windows, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of amber and blood. Tomorrow I'd become Dante Moretti's wife. Tomorrow my life as Emma Reeves would end, and something new, something dangerous, would begin. I walked to the closet, found it filled with clothes that still had tags attached, designer labels I recognized from magazines, fabrics that felt like water and air against my fingertips, everything in my size, everything carefully selected. He'd planned this. Not just the marriage, but every detail. The clothes, the room, the careful unveiling of information. I was a piece on a chessboard he'd been arranging long before he approached me in that subway station. The thought should have terrified me. Maybe it did. But beneath the fear was something else. A strange, unwelcome curiosity about the man who'd orchestrated all of this. Who was Dante Moretti when he wasn't playing mob boss? What did he do in the spaces between violence and negotiation? Did he sleep easily, or did ghosts keep him company in the dark? A knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. A woman in her 50s, gray hair pulled into a neat bun, stood in the doorway with a gentle smile. "Miss Reeves? I'm Margaret, the head of household. Mr. Moretti asked me to check if you needed anything. What did I need? Everything. Nothing. A time machine. I'm fine, thank you. Dinner will be served at 7 in the main dining room, though Mr. Moretti mentioned you might prefer a tray here tonight." Her eyes were kind, understanding without prying. First days can be overwhelming. Here would be better. I wasn't ready to sit across a table from him, to make small talk while pretending this was normal. "Of course. I'll have something sent up." She hesitated. "If I may, Miss Reeves, Mr. Moretti is a good man, despite what the world thinks. He'll take care of you." The words hung in the air after she left. A good man. Could someone who trafficked in violence and fear be good? Could someone who'd essentially bought me be anything other than a monster dressed in expensive suits? But he'd also saved my father. Had given me an escape route, even if it came with strings attached. Had warned me of the dangers, hadn't lied about what I was walking into. Gray areas. Everything in Dante Moretti's world seemed to exist in shades of gray. Dinner arrived on a tray that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Delicate china, silver utensils, food arranged like artwork. I ate mechanically, tasting nothing, while the sky outside deepened to indigo. My phone buzzed. A text from my father. "So happy for you, sweetheart. Get some rest. Big day tomorrow. Love you." Guilt twisted like a knife. I typed back. "Love you too, Dad. See you soon." More lies. He thought I'd found love. He thought his daughter was safe, cared for, happy. He'd die believing I'd found my fairy tale ending. Another text. This one from an unknown number. "The ceremony is at 2 p.m. Car will collect you at 1:30. Dress is in your closet. 3rd door from the left. Sleep well. D." I found the dress where he'd indicated. It wasn't white. That would have been too mockingly bridal. Instead, it was champagne silk. Simple and elegant, with a neckline that was modest but flattering. The kind of dress a woman might wear to a tasteful civil ceremony. Shoes to match sat beside it. Jewelry, too. Pearl earrings and a delicate bracelet that looked antique. He'd thought of everything. Controlled everything. Even my wedding outfit had been selected by him. I should have been furious. Instead, I felt oddly cared for, and that realization was more disturbing than anything else that had happened today. Sleep came in fits and starts. Every creak of the house settling made me jolt awake. Every shadow seemed to hold watchers, though rationally I knew the security was outside, not in. The bed was comfortable, too comfortable, like sleeping on a cloud. But my mind wouldn't quiet. At 3 a.m., I gave up and wandered to the windows. The grounds were lit by strategically placed lights that created pools of illumination in the darkness. I counted 4 guards patrolling the visible areas. Probably more I couldn't see. This was my life now. Protected prisoner. Trophy wife. A pawn in a game I didn't understand. The knock on my door the next morning came at 10. Margaret, bringing breakfast and the news that a stylist would arrive at noon to help me prepare. "Mr. Moretti thought you might want assistance," she said, setting the tray on the small table near the windows. "But if you'd prefer privacy, I can send her away." "No, it's..." I pushed hair out of my face. "It's fine. Thank you." The stylist was a rail-thin woman named Giselle, who spoke very little, but worked efficiently. She did my hair in soft waves, my makeup subtle but polished. When she held up the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. Elegant, composed, the kind of woman who might actually marry a man like Dante Moretti. "Beautiful," Giselle said in accented English. "He will be very pleased." The dress fit perfectly, hugging curves I didn't know I had, the silk cool and sensual against my skin. The shoes added 3 inches to my height. The jewelry completed the transformation. I looked like I belonged in this world of wealth and danger. I looked like someone else entirely. At 1:30 precisely, Margaret knocked to tell me the car was ready. I took one last look in the mirror, searching for Emma Reeves, the tired nurse with worn sneakers and mounting debt. She was gone. In her place stood Dante Moretti's bride. The drive to City Hall felt like traveling to my own execution. The guards, two in front, one beside me and back, said nothing. Outside the windows, the city moved on, oblivious to the girl selling herself to save her father. Dante waited at the courthouse entrance, devastating in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than some cars. When he saw me, something flickered across his face: surprise, appreciation, something darker that made my pulse spike. "Emma." He took my hand, his grip warm and firm. "You look beautiful." I look like someone else. Maybe that's not a bad thing. He tucked my hand into the crook of his arm. "Ready?" "No." "Good. Neither am I." The admission surprised me, but we're going to do this anyway. The ceremony was clinical, brief, utterly devoid of romance. The judge was clearly used to these transactions, reading the words with practiced efficiency, witnessing our signatures, pronouncing us married with all the enthusiasm of someone filing paperwork. When Dante slipped the platinum band onto my finger, his hand was steady. When I did the same for him, mine trembled. "You may kiss the bride," the judge said without inflection. Dante's hand cupped my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. His eyes searched mine for something. Permission, maybe, or understanding. Then he kissed me. It was supposed to be perfunctory. A formality. A brief press of lips to seal the deal. But his mouth was warm, tasting faintly of coffee and mint. The kiss was gentle, almost reverent, and lasted exactly 3 seconds too long to be purely contractual. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark, unreadable. "Hello, Mrs. Moretti." The name settled over me like a shroud. The reception, if you could call it that, was held at an upscale restaurant Dante apparently owned. The private room on the top floor offered panoramic views of the city, all glittering lights and endless possibility for people who could afford to claim it. I couldn't. "Smile," Dante murmured near my ear as we entered. His hand rested on my lower back, possessive and warm through the silk of my dress. "You're supposed to be happy. I'm supposed to be a lot of things." But I smiled anyway, the expression feeling tight and false across my face. The room held perhaps 30 people. Men in expensive suits, women dripping with jewelry that could have funded a small country. They turned as we entered, their eyes cataloging, assessing, judging. I felt stripped bare despite being fully clothed. "Family and associates," Dante explained quietly, guiding me further into the room. "They needed to see that this is real. Is anything in your world real?" His hand tightened fractionally on my back. "You'd be surprised." The next hour was a blur of introductions I'd never remember, and conversations that felt like verbal chess matches. Everyone was polite, painfully so. But I felt the undercurrents, the suspicion, the curiosity, the calculations about who I was and what I meant to Dante's empire. An older man with silver temples and sharp eyes approached, his smile not reaching past his teeth. "Dante, congratulations are in order, I hear." "Marco." Dante's voice cooled several degrees. "Thank you. This is my wife, Emma. Emma, this is Marco Calabresi." The name registered like a gunshot. Calabresi. The rival family Dante had mentioned. The enemies testing boundaries. Marco's eyes swept over me with clinical precision. "A pleasure, Mrs. Moretti. Such a whirlwind romance, I understand. Very sudden. When you know. You know." I echoed the words I'd said to my father, injecting warmth I didn't feel. Dante swept me off my feet. "I'm sure he did." Marco's smile sharpened. He has a talent for acquiring things he wants. "Tell me, my dear, how did you two meet?" The trap was obvious even to me. Any hesitation, any inconsistency would be noted and exploited. "Through a mutual friend," Dante interjected smoothly, "at a charity function 6 months ago. I spilled wine on her dress. Most expensive dry cleaning bill of my life, but worth every penny." The lie rolled off his tongue like silk. I wondered how many times he'd rehearsed it, or if fabrication simply came naturally to him. 6 months. Marco's eyes gleamed, and yet no one knew Dante Moretti was courting anyone. How discreet. Some things are worth keeping private. Dante's hand moved to my waist, pulling me closer against his side. The gesture looked affectionate, protective, but I felt the steel underneath, a warning to Marco, a reminder to me, at least until they become permanent. Indeed. Marco raised his glass in a mock toast. To permanence, then. May your marriage be as enduring as it is convenient. He walked away, leaving the implication hanging like smoke. That was subtle, I muttered once he was out of earshot. Marco doesn't do subtle. He does calculated provocations disguised as pleasantries. Dante guided me toward the windows, away from the crowd. He's testing, seeing if you'll crack under pressure. And if I do? Then he'll know this marriage is exactly what he suspects, a strategic move, which means he'll look harder at what I'm really planning. His reflection in the glass was dark, intense. So you can't crack, Emma. Not here, not in front of any of them. No pressure, then. I have faith in you. He turned me to face him, hands on my shoulders. To anyone watching, it would look intimate, romantic. You've already fooled your father, fooled the judge. These people are just more of the same. Except these people will kill me if they figure out I'm lying. They'll try. His hands tightened, not painfully but firmly, and they'll fail. Because I won't let anyone touch you. Do you understand me, Emma? You're mine now. That means something in this world. The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it sent heat curling through my stomach, unwelcome and confusing. I'm not yours, I whispered. I'm contracted to you. There's a difference. Is there? His thumb traced my collarbone, the touch feather-light and devastating. Because from where I'm standing, you're wearing my ring, you bear my name, and you're under my protection. Sounds like mine to me. Before I could respond, a woman glided over, stunning, with dark hair and darker eyes, poured into a red dress that left little to the imagination. She kissed Dante on both cheeks, familiar and possessive. Dante, darling. Congratulations. Her accent was Italian, her smile razor-sharp, though I must admit, I'm surprised. I thought you'd sworn off marriage after... Adriana. The name came out clipped. This is Emma, my wife. Emma, Adriana Santoro, an old friend. The way Adriana looked at me suggested friend was a generous term. How lovely. Tell me, Emma, what do you do? Before you became Mrs. Moretti, I mean. I was a nurse. I lifted my chin, refusing to be intimidated by her beauty or her obvious history with Dante. At Metropolitan General, a nurse. She said it like I'd confessed to being a janitor. How noble. And now you're a mafia wife. Quite the career change. Adriana. Dante's voice held warning. I'm simply curious, darling. We all are. She gestured to the room, where I realized conversations had quieted, people straining to hear. This marriage came out of nowhere. You can't blame us for wondering about the circumstances. The circumstances are that I fell in love with an incredible woman. Dante's arm slid around my waist, pulling me flush against him. Is that so difficult to believe? From you? Yes, actually. Adriana's eyes glittered with something ugly. You've always been so careful, so controlled. Love doesn't fit the Dante Moretti I know. Then perhaps you didn't know me as well as you thought. The tension crackled like electricity. I felt caught between them, a pawn in whatever game they'd been playing long before I arrived. Dance with me. Dante's command was soft, but absolute. He led me to the small dance floor, where a quartet played something slow and melancholy. His hand found mine, the other settling on my waist, and suddenly, we were moving. Sorry about that, he murmured against my temple. Adriana likes to make scenes. Ex-girlfriend? Something like that. A long time ago. His hand flexed on my waist. She doesn't matter. She seems to think she does. She's wrong. He pulled back enough to look at me, and I was struck again by how young he seemed up close, despite the weight he carried. Emma, I need you to understand something. People in this world will try to undermine you, to make you feel small and insignificant. They'll question your worth, your place, your right to be here. Because I'm not one of you. Because you're with me, and that makes you powerful. They'll try to diminish that power through humiliation and doubt. His hand came up, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was gentle, at odds with his words. Don't let them. You're Mrs. Moretti now. That name is armor. Use it. I don't know how to be Mrs. Moretti. Then learn. His lips brushed my forehead, the kiss chaste but somehow intimate. Watch, listen, adapt. You're smart, Emma. I saw that in the subway station. You assessed the situation, calculated your options, made the hard choice. That's survival instinct. It'll serve you well here. The song ended, but he didn't release me immediately. We stood there, swaying slightly, his arms around me like a shield against the watching eyes. Why did you really marry me? I asked suddenly. The truth, not the convenient explanations. He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, because Marco was circling, because my father's mistakes left us vulnerable, because marriage to the right woman could shore up alliances and provide cover for other activities. He paused. And because when I saw you in that subway station, exhausted and desperate but still fighting, I thought, here's someone who understands the cost of survival. Someone who won't judge me for the choices I've made. You wanted someone broken enough not to care. I wanted someone strong enough to understand. His hand cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. There's a difference, Emma. The rest of the evening blurred together. More introductions, more assessing stares, more careful navigation of social landmines I didn't know existed. Through it all, Dante never left my side, his presence a constant anchor in the shifting currents of Mafia politics. When we finally left, exhaustion hit me like a physical blow. I slumped in the car seat, the rings on my finger feeling heavy as chains. You did well tonight, Dante said, his voice cutting through the silence. Better than I expected. High praise. I mean it. Marco will report back that you seem genuine. That buys us time. Time for what? He looked at me, shadows playing across his features. Better you don't know. Plausible deniability in case something goes wrong and I'm questioned. Understanding settled like ice in my stomach. You're protecting yourself. I'm protecting both of us. He reached over, took my hand. The touch should have felt clinical, but his thumb traced circles on my palm that sent shivers up my arm. The less you know about my business, the safer you are. Trust me on this. We pulled through the gates, the house rising before us like something from a Gothic novel. Inside, the staff had apparently gone to bed. Only dim lighting marked our path up the stairs. At my door, Dante paused. Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll establish routines, go over what's expected at various functions. More acting lessons, if you want to call it that. He leaned against the door frame, and for a moment he looked almost vulnerable. Tired. Human, Emma. Thank you. For today, I know it wasn't what you wanted. Neither was my father dying or drowning in debt. Life rarely is what we want. No. Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or shared pain. It rarely is. He turned to leave, but I caught his arm. The touch startled us both. Dante. His name felt strange on my tongue. That kiss. At the courthouse. That was necessary. He cut me off, but his eyes dropped to my lips for a fraction of a second. For appearances. Right. Appearances. I released him, stepped back. Good night, then. Good night, Emma. I watched him walk down the hall to wherever his rooms were. When I finally closed my door, I leaned against it, fingers pressed to my lips where his had been. Necessary. For appearances. Nothing more. So why did it still linger, hours later, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling? Why could I still feel the warmth of his hand on my waist, the gentle way he'd touched my face, the possession in his voice when he'd called me his? This was a business arrangement. 6 months of performance art, then freedom. I couldn't afford to confuse the role with reality. But as I drifted toward sleep, my last thought was of storm cloud eyes, and the way Dante Moretti looked at me like I was something precious he'd found in the ruins, and how terrifyingly easy it would be to start believing the lie we were living. 3 days into my marriage, I woke to raised voices echoing through the house. I pulled on a robe, silk, because apparently everything in this house was expensive, and cracked open my door. Down the hall, Dante's voice carried, sharp with anger I'd never heard before. Told you to handle it quietly. Now we have a fucking mess. Another voice. Male. Unfamiliar. Wasn't our fault, boss. They were waiting. A crash. Like something being thrown. Then Dante, dangerously quiet. Get out. All of you. Now. Footsteps. Hurried and heavy. I pulled back, heart racing as several men passed my door. Their faces were grim, and one had blood on his shirt. Silence fell, thick and ominous. I should have stayed in my room. Should have closed the door and pretended I'd heard nothing. Instead, I found myself walking down the hall, following some instinct I didn't understand. Dante's office door stood ajar. Through the gap, I saw him standing at the window, shoulders rigid, hands braced against the frame. His shirt was untucked, sleeves rolled up, and there was something in his posture that spoke of barely controlled rage. You should be sleeping. He didn't turn around. Hard to sleep through World War III. I pushed the door open wider. What happened? Nothing that concerns you. We're married. Everything concerns me now, doesn't it? Appearances and all that. He turned then, and I saw the exhaustion carved into his features. He looked older suddenly, the weight of his world visible in ways he usually hid. One of my shipments was intercepted. 3 men dead, 2 wounded. The Calabresi are getting bolder. I'm sorry. Don't be. This is my world, Emma. Violence, death, consequences. He poured himself a drink, whiskey, amber, and sharp. This is what you married into. I know what I married into. I moved closer, drawn by something I couldn't name. Doesn't mean I can't be sorry people died. He laughed, the sound bitter. You're too good for this, too soft. Maybe, or maybe I'm exactly what you need, someone who reminds you that empathy still exists. Our eyes met across the space. Something shifted in that moment, some invisible line blurring. Why did you come out here? He asked quietly. You could have stayed in your room, stayed safe. I don't know. And I didn't. I heard you and I wanted to make sure you were okay. I'm fine. You're not. You're standing in your office at 3 a.m., drinking alone, after losing men. I crossed the final distance between us. That's not fine, Dante. What do you want me to say? His voice cracked slightly. That it gets to me? That I lie awake wondering if there was something I could have done differently? That the weight of every death sits on my shoulders like stones? Yes. I reached out, my hand hovering near his arm. Say that. Be human for 5 minutes. He stared at my hand, then at me. Then he did something that shocked us both. He pulled me into his arms, his face buried in my hair, his body shaking with silent, furious grief. I held him, this dangerous man who'd bought me with contracts and money, and felt the walls between us crack just a little. The morning after Dante broke in my arms, everything changed. I woke to find a note slipped under my door, his handwriting bold and decisive across expensive cardstock. Breakfast on the terrace. We need to talk. D. The terrace was a flagstone expanse overlooking the gardens, warmed by outdoor heaters that fought against the December chill. Dante sat at a wrought iron table, coffee steaming in front of him, looking like he'd already been awake for hours. He'd shaved, dressed in dark slacks and a cream sweater, and if not for the shadows under his eyes, I might have thought last night had been a dream. Good morning? He stood as I approached, pulling out a chair. The courtesy felt strange, intimate in a way our staged interactions at the reception hadn't been. Morning. I sat, accepting the coffee a silent staff member poured. You wanted to talk? About last night. He waited until we were alone again. I shouldn't have. That wasn't appropriate. You're not here to be my therapist. I'm here to be your wife. Even a fake wife is supposed to care when her husband is hurting. The words came out softer than I intended. His fingers tightened around his cup. It can't happen again. I can't afford weakness, Emma, not in my position. Grief isn't weakness. In my world, it is. He set down the cup, his expression hardening back into the mask I'd come to recognize. Marco is circling. The Calabresi are making moves. If they sense any vulnerability, they'll strike, which means I need to be invincible. I leaned forward. Dante, you're human. Pretending otherwise won't change that. Human gets you killed, but something in his eyes softened. You're different from what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who'd take the money and keep her head down. Someone who wouldn't ask questions or notice things they shouldn't. He studied me over the rim of his cup. Someone easier to compartmentalize. Sorry to disappoint. You haven't. The admission seemed to surprise him as much as it did me. If anything, He stopped, shook his head. Eat your breakfast. We have an event tonight. Gallery opening. Very public. Lots of press. You'll need to look perfect. The subject change was obvious, but I let it go. For now. The next 3 weeks blurred into a strange new normal. Days were spent navigating my role as Mrs. Moretti, charity luncheons where women with too much money and too little purpose dissected my background, evening functions where I smiled and played the devoted wife, while Dante conducted business in corners I pretended not to notice, quiet dinners where we sat across from each other and made careful conversation about nothing important. But the nights were different. It started innocently enough. I'd hear sounds from his office, doors closing, voices raised, sometimes silence that felt heavier than noise. And I'd find myself drawn down the hall, checking on him like it was my job. Sometimes he'd send me away. Other times, he'd pour me a drink, and we'd sit in companionable quiet while he worked through whatever crisis had erupted. He never told me details, but I learned to read his moods, the set of his shoulders when a deal went badly, the way his jaw clenched when Marco made another move, the exhaustion that settled over him like fog after particularly difficult decisions. You don't have to keep doing this, he said one night, 3 weeks into our marriage. I'd found him on the terrace despite the December cold, staring at nothing. Doing what? Checking on me. Caring. He glanced at me, snowflakes catching in his dark hair. This isn't part of our agreement. Maybe I'm just a masochist who enjoys freezing. I pulled my coat tighter. Or maybe I'm bored and you're the most interesting thing in this house. Liar. But his mouth curved slightly. You're reading those medical journals I saw in your room. Keeping current with your field. You've been in my room? I own the house, Emma. I've been everywhere. He moved closer, his body blocking the wind. But I haven't been through your things, if that's what you're worried about. I respect your privacy. Do you? I tilted my head back to look at him. Because sometimes I feel like you see right through me. Like you know exactly what I'm thinking. Then you know how I feel every time you look at me like that. Like what? Like you're trying to figure me out, solve me like I'm some kind of puzzle. His hand came up, brushing snow from my hair. The touch lingered. I'm not solvable, Emma. I'm just broken in ways that can't be fixed. Everyone's broken. That doesn't make you unsolvable. Spoken like someone who still believes in redemption. But he didn't move away, and neither did I. The moment stretched, crystalline and fragile. His hand still rested against my hair, his body close enough that I could feel his warmth. The rational part of my brain screamed that this was dangerous, that crossing this line would complicate everything. But standing there in the snow, with this man who'd bought me but somehow made me feel seen, rationality felt very far away. Dante, I started, but he stepped back abruptly. You should go inside. You'll catch cold. His voice had gone flat, professional. We have the mayor's holiday party tomorrow night. Major security concerns. I need you alert. The dismissal stung more than it should have. I nodded, turned toward the door. Emma. His voice stopped me. Thank you for checking on me. It means... He paused. It means more than you know. I left him standing in the snow and tried not to think about how much I'd wanted him to close the distance between us. The mayor's party was held at a historic mansion decorated within an inch of its life, garlands and lights, and enough champagne to float a yacht. I wore emerald silk that made my eyes look impossibly green, hair swept up to expose the diamond necklace Dante had given me that afternoon. For appearances, he'd said, fastening it around my neck. But his fingers had lingered on my skin, and his eyes in the mirror had held something that looked dangerously like want. Now, his hand rested possessively on my lower back as we navigated the crowd. Politicians and their wives, business magnates, and scattered throughout, I recognized faces from our wedding. Dante's associates, carefully legitimate on the surface, but carrying the same dangerous edge underneath. Marco Calabresi was there too. watching us with those calculating eyes. "He's planning something," I murmured to Dante as we accepted champagne from a passing waiter. "Always." Dante's hand tightened on my waist. "Which is why you don't leave my side tonight, understood? I'm not a child. No, you're my wife, which makes you a target." He leaned down, his breath warm against my ear. "Humor me, Emma. Please." The please undid me. I nodded and felt him relax fractionally. The evening proceeded with agonizing slowness. Small talk with people whose names I'd forget tomorrow, photographs for society pages I'd never read, careful navigation of questions about how we met and when we'd have children, that last one making Dante's expression go carefully blank. "We're in no rush," I'd answered smoothly, playing my role. "We're enjoying being newlyweds." Around midnight, I excused myself to the restroom. Dante looked like he wanted to protest, but I gave him a look that promised I wouldn't do anything stupid. The bathroom was all marble and gold fixtures, empty except for one other woman reapplying lipstick. She glanced at me in the mirror, smiled politely, and left. I was washing my hands when the door opened again. Adriana Santoro stepped in, stunning in black, her smile sharp as glass. "Emma, how lovely to run into you." She moved to the mirror, though her makeup was already perfect. "Enjoying your fairy tale? I'm enjoying my marriage, if that's what you mean." "Are you?" She turned to face me fully, "Because from where I'm standing, you look like a girl playing dress-up in a world she doesn't understand." "Then maybe you should get your eyes checked." Her expression hardened. "You think you're clever, don't you? Landing Dante Moretti, living in his house, wearing his diamonds, but you don't belong here, Emma. You're a temporary amusement, a nurse playing princess, and you're an ex-girlfriend who can't move on." I matched her tone, ice for ice. Which of us sounds more pathetic? Her hand moved faster than I could track, connecting with my cheek in a slap that cracked through the bathroom. Pain bloomed, sharp and shocking. "You little bitch," she started, but the door burst open. Dante filled the doorway, his expression absolutely murderous. Behind him, one of his guards hovered, radio in hand. "Get out." Dante's voice was barely above a whisper, but Adriana went pale. "Dante, I said get out. If I see you anywhere near my wife again, if you so much as look at her wrong, I will personally ensure you regret it. Do we understand each other?" Adriana's eyes went wide. She nodded once, then fled, her heels clicking frantically on the marble. Dante crossed to me in 3 strides, his hands framing my face with surprising gentleness. "Let me see. I'm fine." But my cheek throbbed, and I could feel it starting to swell. "You're not fine. She hit you." His thumb traced just below the mark, careful not to touch the injury. "Jesus, Emma. How did you know?" Guard outside heard raised voices, alerted me immediately. His eyes blazed with fury barely contained. "We're leaving. Now. We can't just leave. The mayor can go to hell." He took my hand, pulling me toward the door. "Anyone who has a problem with me leaving to care for my wife can take it up with me personally." The possessiveness in his voice, the barely leashed violence, should have frightened me. Instead, something warm unfurled in my chest. He didn't let go of my hand the entire way to the car, through the drive home, up the stairs to my room. Only when we were inside, door closed against the world, did he release me. "Sit." He gestured to the bed, disappearing into my bathroom. He returned with ice wrapped in a towel, sitting beside me and pressing it gently to my cheek. "Hold that." I held it, watching him. In the soft lamplight, his face looked carved from stone, every angle sharp with anger. "I should have anticipated she'd try something," he said, more to himself than me. "Should have had someone inside with you. I can take care of myself, clearly." But his hand came up, covering mine on the ice pack. "I'm sorry. For bringing you into this world, for exposing you to people like Adriana. You didn't hit me. She did. I might as well have. You're only here because of me, because of the choice I forced you into." His eyes met mine, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Guilt. Real, genuine guilt. You deserve better than this, Emma. Maybe. I lowered the ice pack. But this is what I have, what we have. For the next, 5 months? 4.5. His thumb traced circles on the back of my hand. Then you're free. The word free should have sounded appealing. Instead, it felt hollow. Dante. I set down the ice pack, took his hand properly. Why did you look so murderous when you saw Adriana had hit me? This is supposed to be business. I'm supposed to be a convenient arrangement. You are. But his voice lacked conviction. Then why does it feel like something changed? I moved closer, drawn by something I couldn't name. Why do we keep ending up in moments like this, where the lines blur and the contract seems less important than what? His hand cupped my uninjured cheek. Finish that sentence, Emma. Then whatever this is between us. The words tumbled out, reckless and true. You feel it too, don't you? This thing that wasn't supposed to happen? Emma. My name sounded like a warning and a prayer. We can't. Why not? I turned my face into his palm. We're married. We live together. We're already playing pretend. Why can't we? He kissed me. Not the perfunctory press of lips at our wedding, but a real kiss. Deep and desperate, and filled with weeks of tension building between us. His hand tangled in my hair, the other pulling me closer, and I went willingly, drowning in the taste of him. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, his forehead rested against mine. This is a terrible idea, he whispered. Probably. You're supposed to walk away from this unscathed. Adding feelings to the equation only makes it messier. Too late. I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I'm already feeling things I shouldn't, have been for weeks. Emma, don't. I pressed my fingers to his lips. Don't tell me this is just the contract, or Stockholm Syndrome, or whatever rational explanation you've prepared. I know what I feel. I know this is reckless and probably stupid and definitely not part of the plan. But I'm tired of pretending, Dante. Tired of playing a role when what I want is right in front of me. His eyes searched mine, looking for doubt he wouldn't find. Then he kissed me again, softer this time, like I was something precious he was afraid to break. I never expected you, he said against my lips. Never expected to feel. He stopped, shook his head. You're supposed to be easy to let go of, and I'm not? No. The admission seemed torn from him. You're not. We sat there, foreheads touching, the moment crystallizing into something undeniable. Outside, snow began to fall again, but in this room, with his hands gentle on my face and my heart racing against my ribs, I felt warm for the first time since entering his world. What do we do now? I whispered. I don't know. His thumb traced my lower lip. But I know I don't want to let you go when the 6 months are up. The confession hung between us, brave and terrifying. Then don't. I kissed him again, pouring weeks of confusion and denial and unwanted feelings into it. The contract says 6 months. It doesn't say what happens after. Emma, my world, I know what your world is. I've been living in it. I pulled back, met his eyes steadily. And I'm still here, still choosing this. Choosing you. Something in his expression cracked open. You're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both. I smiled, felt it waver. But I'm choosing this anyway. Choosing us, if that's what you want. What I want, he laughed, the sound rough. I want to wake up with you in my arms. I want to stop pretending this marriage is just business. I want to keep you safe from Marco and Adriana and every other threat in my world, while also wanting to show you off as mine. His hand slid into my hair. I want things I have no right to want, Emma. Things that make me selfish and dangerous. Then be selfish. Be dangerous. With me. He kissed me again, and this time it felt like a beginning instead of a mistake. The next morning I woke in my bed, alone, but with evidence of the night before scattered around. My dress draped over a chair, his tie on the nightstand, the lingering scent of sandalwood on my sheets. We'd talked until dawn, kissing between confessions, mapping out what this meant for us. The contract would remain in place. Safer that way. More protection for both of us if things went wrong. But between us, privately, we'd acknowledged what was growing. A note on my pillow, his handwriting. Had to handle something. Back by noon. Don't miss me too much. D. I smiled, pressed the note to my chest like a teenager with her first crush. The rational part of my brain screamed that this was dangerous, that falling for Dante Moretti was the worst possible idea, but my heart, stupid and hopeful, didn't care about rationality. I spent the morning visiting my father, who looked better than he had in months. The new treatment Dante had arranged was working, buying time we'd thought was lost. He held my hand, told me how happy he was that I'd found someone who loved me. You have that glow, he said, smiling despite his exhaustion, that newlywed happiness. Your mother would be so pleased. Guilt twisted, but I pushed it down. Let him have this. Let him believe his daughter had found her fairy tale. I love you, Dad. I kissed his forehead. Rest now. I'll be back tomorrow. When I returned to the house, Dante was in his office, surrounded by papers and looking stressed. But when I entered, his whole expression transformed. There you are. He stood, crossing to me, pulling me into his arms like it was the most natural thing in the world. How's your father? Better. Thanks to you. I looked up at him. Thank you. For all of it. The treatment, the care, giving him peace in his final months. You don't have to thank me, Emma. He's family now. The way he said family made my chest tight. Which reminds me, Christmas is in 2 weeks. My mother wants to meet you. Your mother? Panic fluttered. Dante, I can't meet your mother. She'll see right through. Through what? The fact that I'm crazy about my wife. He tucked hair behind my ear. Emma, my mother's going to love you. And the rest of my family, cousins, aunts, uncles, the whole loud Italian nightmare, they'll accept you because I do. You're really serious about this. It wasn't a question. Deadly serious. He cupped my face. I know it's fast. I know we started this all wrong, but somewhere between the contract and the pretending, this became real for me. You became real for me. What about Marco? The Calabrese? The danger? I'll handle it. I've been building a case against Marco for months. Federal prosecutors are finally paying attention. By spring, the threat should be neutralized. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and then you'll just be stuck with me and my overprotective tendencies. I think I can live with that. We kissed, soft and sure, and I felt the pieces of my shattered life beginning to reform into something new, something that looked remarkably like happiness. Christmas Eve arrived in a whirlwind of snow and preparation. The Moretti family descended on the house like a beautiful, chaotic storm. Dante's mother, Maria, tiny and fierce, and immediately pulling me into a hug that smelled like vanilla and home. His 3 brothers, all variations of Dante's dangerous beauty, their wives and children filling the house with laughter I hadn't known these walls could hold. So you're the woman who captured our Ice King. Marco, not the Calabrese, but Dante's oldest brother, said, grinning. We'd given up hope. I'm as surprised as anyone, I admitted, watching Dante across the room with his nephew on his shoulders, looking younger and lighter than I'd ever seen him. Maria took my hand, squeezed it. He's different with you. Softer. Thank you for that. I didn't do anything. You loved him. She said it simply, like it was obvious. That's everything. That night, after everyone had finally gone to bed, Dante led me to the terrace. The grounds were blanketed in fresh snow, the lights from the house casting everything in warm gold. I have something for you. He pulled out a small box, not the ostentatious kind from the jewelry stores he frequented for appearances, but something simple, personal. Inside was a delicate chain with a single pendant, a small key. It's to my rooms, he said quietly. I know you have your own suite, and if you want to keep it that way, I understand. But I'm hoping. He stopped, started again. I'm hoping you'll use it, that you'll let this be real in every way. I looked at him. This man who'd bought me with contracts but won me with honesty. This dangerous, complicated, beautiful man who'd shown me that love could grow in the strangest soil. "I think I fell for you in that subway station," I confessed. "When you could have been cruel but were honest instead. When you gave me a choice, even if it wasn't much of one." "Emma, I'm not finished." I took the necklace, held it to my chest. "I choose you, Dante, not because of the contract or the money or the protection. I choose you because you're good to my father. Because you hold me when I'm scared. Because you're trying so hard to be better than the world expects. I choose you because somewhere between pretending and reality, I fell in love with you." He pulled me into his arms, buried his face in my hair. "I love you," he whispered. "God help me. I love you so much it terrifies me." "Then be terrified with me." He kissed me there in the snow, under the Christmas lights, and it felt like a vow more binding than any contract we'd signed. 3 months later, my father passed peacefully in his sleep, pain-free, and believing his daughter had found happiness. Dante held me through my grief, this man who knew about loss and redemption. 6 months after our wedding, the original contract expired. We tore it up together and renewed our vows. This time in a church, surrounded by family, every word meaning something true. "I promise to love you in every season," I said, hands trembling in his. "To be your sanctuary when the world gets too heavy. To remind you that you're good, even when you forget. I promise to protect you," he answered, voice rough with emotion. "To give you the freedom to choose, every day. To love you even when it's inconvenient, even when it's dangerous. To be worthy of the gift you've given me, your heart, freely offered when I'd only dared to buy your time." 7 months in, federal prosecutors arrested Marco Calabresi and 37 members of his organization. The Calabresi empire crumbled, and with it, the immediate threat to our lives. A year after our first wedding, I woke in Dante's arms, our arms now, our bed, our life, and realized I couldn't remember what desperation felt like anymore. Couldn't remember the girl in the subway station who'd been drowning. She'd been saved by a man in a charcoal suit, by a contract that had become so much more. "What are you thinking?" Dante's voice was rough with sleep, his hand tracing lazy patterns on my back. That I'd do it all again. Every moment, every choice, even knowing how hard it would be. I propped myself up to look at him. I'd sign that contract 1,000 times if it meant ending up here. He pulled me down for a kiss, slow and thorough. "No more contracts, just promises." "Just promises," I agreed. Outside our window, spring was painting the grounds in shades of green and gold. Inside, wrapped in expensive sheets with my complicated, beautiful husband, I'd never felt wealthier. I'd married the Mafia boss in a deal to save my father. I'd expected survival. I'd expected performance art and counting down days until freedom. I'd never expected to fall in love, but standing at the intersection of desperation and salvation, I'd found something neither of us had planned for, a home in each other's arms, built on honesty and choice, and the courage to believe that even the strangest beginnings could lead to the most beautiful endings. The rings on our fingers no longer felt like chains. They felt like promises kept, futures chosen, and love that had bloomed in the most unlikely soil, fed by honesty, watered by tears, and growing stronger with every sunrise we faced together.